Mortal Kombat is the latest attempt to buck the trend of bad video game to movie adaptations. Does it succeed? Does it fail? Is it somewhere in the middle? Let's talk about it. Hey movie fans, so Mortal Kombat is the latest in a long line of video game adaptations, with most of them failing. However, I still kind of have a soft spot for Prince of Persia. As far as video game movie adaptations go, I think this Mortal Kombat is somewhere in the middle to better scale. I think the bar is pretty low for that.
Earth is under attack, and it is glorious!
But yeah, this is a little bit of a give and take. There's plenty of good and plenty of bad. So let's break down and kind of review in a completely spoiler-free fashion 2021's Mortal Kombat. So some of the positives in this is the opening of this movie. I wish the rest of the movie was as clear and coherent storytelling-wise as the opening of the movie is. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but a rivalry is established pretty early on in this opening scene. It's incredibly well done. It's actually got some emotion, pretty gorgeous cinematography, great choreography. It's a very well done opening scene, and then it kind of divulges into a whole bunch of side tangents that is either really, really good or really, really bad. That's a positive and a negative for this movie. Is there's a lot of characters in this, and I should feel like I should divulge the fact that I did not grow up playing Mortal Kombat. I have played Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11, and I've played both Injustice 1 and Injustice 2. I didn't play a lot of combat games. I especially didn't play Mortal Kombat growing up. So I have a vague sense of who these characters are. This movie will help you a lot if you know these characters going into it. If not, I won't say you're going to be completely lost, but you're going to think these characters are kind of shallow. And I'm not gonna lie, they may not always have the best performance acting wise, we'll put it that way. There's no true stinker performances. We've seen far worse acting performances in the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Mother, you're alive. Too bad you will die.
But nothing truly stands out in terms of great acting, except for one character, oddly. Because I don't know the Mortal Kombat games, I don't know if this character is portrayed accurately or not, but who cares? As far as a movie goes, my favorite character by far was Kano. He seemed like the only character in this movie that knew what kind of movie he was in and was just gonna have fun with it. It kind of gave me the same vibes as Jai Courtney in the first Suicide Squad movie. Like, not typically a Jai Courtney fan, but man, that guy was having so much fun in that first Suicide Squad movie. Also, for a movie with a quote-unquote relatively small budget of around $50 million, it looks pretty decent for the most part. There's still a few wonky effects, but by and large, this felt like, from a visual standpoint, the movie that the Mortal Kombat franchise deserves in terms of when it does choose to get violent, it will get violent and gory and gruesome and all that jazz. I could have used a little bit more of it. This movie hyped up how gory and gruesome it was going to be, and it didn't fully live up to that, but the special effects actually really held up their end of the bargain, as well as the locations. This movie understands that in order to keep these fights interesting, just like in the games, you need to fight on different arenas to keep it interesting, to keep the flow going, to also differentiate the fights. Like when you have in your finale 3 or 4 people fighting at the same time, who is where? It helps from a choreography and like eyeball test, basically. The locations are gorgeous, it helps distinct, it keeps everything varied and interesting as the movie progresses. I really like the locations more than anything. However, the movie is not without its faults, and while I only have 2 or 3 faults, these are such major glaring issues that are present throughout the movie that it kind of leans more towards the negative, towards the positive as my overall opinion of the movie, for me at least. The biggest factor in this is the dialogue and the writing. It is atrocious. It is so bad. Characters will almost pause mid-fight just so they can read you their baseball card stats, basically. This is where it will come in handy if you are familiar with the Mortal Kombat games. If you are not, like me, and kind of have a vague sense of who these characters are, yeah, you might be a little bit lost. And also, dialogue and just other writing in this movie is just kind of spouted out. There's a lot of tell and not showing of just, hey, you were this, this, and this, instead of getting us to care about these characters. It's just, we're gonna tell you how cool or how awesome these characters are. One character in particular that I was really on the fence about before this movie came out, and I was still, at least having seen the movie now, justified those concerns, and that's the main character, whose name is Cole Young. Now, Cole Young is not in any of the Mortal Kombat games whatsoever. He's completely made up for this movie. I saw that as a red flag going into this movie, and having seen the movie, I still think that was the wrong choice. His character is fine, but I think the narrative could still be served just as well, if not better, by using a character or two that are already in this movie. Like, Cole Young as a character doesn't bring anything special to the table. He's not a standout or anything in particular. The actor Lewis Tan is just fine in the role, nothing against him, but there was no reason or point to bring in this completely new character, and they do some things that, as a non-diehard Mortal Kombat fan, it didn't really faze me, but I'm sure there are Mortal Kombat fans out there that weren't too happy with certain decisions that were made in this movie, maybe because it broke the lore or whatever else. I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments, because I could definitely, even just as an outsider looking in, I'm going, okay, this movie is clearly doing its own thing from a narrative and from a lore standpoint for Mortal Kombat, which is good in the sense that it's not afraid to embrace its own thing, but at the same time, you don't want to alienate your already existing audience that comes with Mortal Kombat. It's already such a niche audience, you don't want to alienate them, and I feel like the character of Cole Young might do that, because at times, especially in the finale, he feels very much like a third wheel, just does not need to be there. He's just awkward. But that brings me back to my positives to round things out. The finale, when things kick it into gear, when there's not a lot of talking and just a lot of fighting. There's 3 or 4 fights happening all at the same time in the finale, and it's really fun and engaging. There's a great fatality in this, a flawless victory. I won't say what happens, but that got a big pop out of me, even as a not big Mortal Kombat fan. And as somebody that only has played it a few times, there was quite a few times with the Easter eggs that I was like, okay, I get this. I can have fun with this. This is a good Easter egg. Other times, they're very beat you over the head with it, especially with the end tease to a character that a lot of people were not too happy wasn't in this movie, but I'm happy to say, well, more than likely, it's all but guaranteed, he'll be in the next one if this gets a sequel. The finale to me was the standout part that kind of puts it over the edge. Like, if I had to rate this movie, it would be like, you got a passing grade, but barely. You got like a 65 or a 66, because the finale, the last half an hour to me, was so wickedly fun and delivered on the Mortal Kombat that we were kind of promised, where the rest of the movie just drags or has pacing problems, and especially dialogue problems. The finale is a lot of fun. It goes balls to the wall, fighting, action, everything you know and love from Mortal Kombat. Does it always make sense? No, not really. But is it fun? Oh yeah. Well, what do you guys think of Mortal Kombat, this new version? Do you like the original better? Do you like Mortal Kombat Annihilation better? You crazy people. I'm sure there's some of you out there. But let me know in the comments below. I always like hearing from you guys. And as always, if you like what you hear and you want to hear more, subscribe to the Uncharted Media podcast that you can find right here on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to subscribe to Uncharted Media. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.